There we go.
Actually, don't feel much good.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Have attention, please. All quiet, please. Thank you. Go ahead and open up your notes. We're going to continue on where we left off. Article 1, Section 8. We're talking about the powers of Congress, the power of the United States government. Hope I didn't depress you too much last time by oh my gosh, we got a lot of debt. Oh my gosh, I'll never pay that off. I think I'll move to some other country that doesn't have as much debt.
Canada.
I think I'll go to, I don't know, Canada's got a fair amount, but maybe not as much as maybe Norway, you know. Norway's kind of lucky because they got a lot of oil in the ground in the North Sea right off of them, so they do pretty well that way. Speaking of not having enough money, we're going to start off with bankruptcy, okay? Yes. You're like, oh, great. Okay? Yeah, remember this part. Did you guys have any questions?
No.
Everybody going to be ready for the quiz next Tuesday? Good. What's it on? It's not completely random, but there is some randomness in there. When you go through there and prepare it, you'll be like, oh yeah, we covered that, and that's new because I'm testing you in these quizzes on reading comprehension. So come in prepared for that. I'm going to say it's 10 points, true, false. Okay? Cool beans. There we go. And I do have another one after that, and it'll be, if you've seen on Google Classroom, I've already got that posted, and I've already uploaded the list. But I've got them right here, but I'll hand them out to you next week, and that'll be after the break. And that's the rest of Chapter 3, dealing with the Constitution and so forth, Sections 3 and 4. Otherwise, we're in here, we're learning, we're bringing it, okay? And this section is kind of a variety of things. Last time was definitely the theme of taxing, spending, oh yes, and borrowing. And I'm keeping an eye on what's going on in the United States Congress because there is some legislation going through in which there's going to be, looks like, some more checks being distributed to Americans to face the difficulties associated with COVID and the impact on the economy. And Jana, where do you suppose we're going to get the money to write those checks? Banks! They're just going to give us America? They're just going to give America that money? They're gonna loan it to us. Yeah, so it'll be added to. Oh, do you remember that one? Look at the image. Look at the chart. It's got colors. It's going up in a direction. It's like it's going to the moon. I hope your personal finances don't end up looking like that. Or if they do look, actually, probably over the next 5 years, it's going to look a little bit like that. But you're going to hit a point, hopefully, where after you have taken out a lot of loans for college or what have you, you're going to be earning money. Although you will potentially be in a bit of a pickle because you're like, what do you want to do now that you finish college? I don't know, maybe be a beach bum. And the bank's going to go, well, you think those things are just going to disappear? No, they don't just disappear. Let's get to that. Yeah, let's get to that because that actually fits in very nicely with this. This I don't want to dwell on anymore. Anybody in here know anybody who is a naturalized U.S. citizen? Who is a naturalized citizen that you know of? You are. Where were you born? Montana is part of the United States. If you were born in Montana, no, seriously, write this down. Your aunt, where is she born? Mexico? Okay. So has she gone through the process of becoming naturalized? Can she vote? That's usually going to indicate if they can vote. Yes. Citizen. My mom, yeah, she was a naturalized citizen. You guys have heard the story. My dad from Idaho, which is part of the United States, right next to Montana, which is where we are right now. My dad met my mom. You guys remember? I told that story in yeah, very good. South Africa. Yeah. And where's my mom from?
England.
Very good. What was her profession?
An actress.
That's right. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Anyway, so I remember when my dad was first running for office, he would go around knocking on doors and trying to get people to vote for my dad, and basically saying, there's something you can do for my husband that I can't do. And they'd look at her like, this is going to be a very interesting conversation. And at that point, she wasn't a U.S. citizen. She is now. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, quickly.
So my uncle, would pass into the, whatever army fly.
Okay. The Air Force?
Yeah, the Air
Yep,
Force.
okay. I mean, there's a flying component of the Navy and the Marines as well, but yeah, go ahead.
So if my aunt married him.
Good question.
I'll have to take the test.
Yeah, good question. If you marry somebody from the United States, do you automatically get U.S. citizenship? No. In fact, you don't even automatically get to live in the United States. It's actually gotten a lot tougher. It was a lot easier when my mom married my dad. She came over and everything was fine and everything's cool. She didn't have to leave or anything like that. But it's a lot tougher now. Just make sure you write this down, okay? The rules are set by Congress, along with the President of the United States, as to immigration and what are the rules as far as becoming in this country legally, working in this country legally, becoming a U.S. citizen. I mean, it's going to take some time, and you have to take a test. By the way, you have to take a test, the same test. That's the Idaho high school graduation requirements. It's the civics exam. You'll be taking it at the end of this semester. It's not that hard. I'll give you the 100 things that are in it. I mean, it's weird. It's got some history and some government and some geography, and even it's got holidays. Like, what holiday is celebrated on July the 4th?
Halloween.
Wrong. We're going to kick you out of the country. We're going to expel you for not knowing that. Of course the 4th of July, but what is that also known as? Independence Day. That's right. Haven't you ever seen the Aliens movie? Exactly, yeah. We will not go quietly into the night, says President What's-His-Name as they shoot down the aliens and so forth. Anyway, that was really cool. So, you don't remember that? You remember that? Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I mean, the first one was bad. Yeah, the first one was best. All right, now, let's get to the next thing. Because they kind of jump around here a little bit. You ready? Write this down. Bankruptcy. Congress makes the laws on bankruptcy. I'll explain it to you, and then I will explain the latest laws relative to bankruptcy. Okay? Here's what happens, and you can relate to this. A human being in this country borrows a bunch of money in order to buy stuff, or who knows what they're borrowing the money for. But they have to pay it back. Credit card debt, student loan debt, housing debt, all kinds of different debts. But if they can't pay it back, they might declare bankruptcy. Listen carefully. Then it will be handled by the bankruptcy court, which is a federal court. So this is done by the nation, not the state. Okay? So you don't do it there's no Idaho state bankruptcy court. There's a federal bankruptcy court. And basically, what some people think is, oh, well, if I declare bankruptcy, I don't have to pay it back. Wrong. Make sure you write that down. It used to be that when people declared bankruptcy, some of those loans that they owed kind of disappeared. And then the banks would just sort of write it off and go, well, I guess we're never going to get that money back, you know? I don't know, kind of like, is that how it works when you take out a loan from your parents, or do they expect you to get the money back? They expect you to get it back, yeah. Okay, question.
Don't they disappear temporarily, when you find the money, they come back?
Here's how it works, okay? Let's make sure you understand how it works today, and then we'll play it all out. The bankruptcy laws were changed, I want to say, within the last 10 years or so. You can do this. And they were, a lot of banks went to the members of Congress and said, look, can you make the bankruptcy laws tighter? Can you make it so that it's not so easy just to make debt just disappear? And Congress went along with that. They're like, we want to have banks that are going to get their money back. So here's what actually happens nowadays. Somebody declares bankruptcy, and the bankruptcy court will set up like a payment plan. Got that? A payment plan. Literally what they'll do is they'll go through and they'll go, all right, let me see. What are your, you know this from econ, what are your needs? As in like food, shelter, transportation, health, basic needs, all right? So we're going to make sure that you always are going to have enough money for that. So whatever you're earning in your job, you'll always have that set aside for that. Now, if you have a really big house, they're like, I'm sorry, you can't really afford a really big house, not with all that debt, so you need to move into something smaller and cheaper that you can afford. And then they'll actually set it up so that what you owe is taken like out of your paycheck on a regular basis, bit by bit by bit. All of your loans are consolidated into one convenient mass, and it is pulled out over a period of time. Because here's the reality in bankruptcy. If you're not able to pay your loans back, are you able to actually get any more loans? No, because the bank is going to look at you and go, no. Or if they do give you a loan, they're going to jack up some really high, outrageous interest fee. Avoid that at all costs. Have it. Here's the deal. No, Mr. Hanson, to you guys, make a little note of this mentally or write it down. When you do borrow money, like if you get your first credit card, pay it off on time, regularly. Try really hard not to declare bankruptcy, because that will ruin what is called your credit rating. And your credit rating is what banks and credit raters and so forth look at. They look at your history of you paying on time in a regular way, in full, and so forth. And if you've got a good credit rating, then banks will give you a lower interest rate, which is good. If you don't have a good credit rating, you're either not going to get a loan or they'll charge a high interest rates. Some of you guys, I can't remember if this was a class, a couple of classes are like, oh yeah, loan sharks. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like some of those, oh gosh, what do they call those? You basically take your paycheck there and then they immediately give you a loan or something. And anyway, they're like really quick. The interest rates are not very good there. Anyway, do you want to hear more on that? You do? Just be careful. Don't spend more than you have. Or see, I would say, don't spend more than you're able to pay back. And here's one thing to keep in mind. Because if you're like looking for your first house, somebody, the realtor will go, hey, the bank approved you for a loan of this amount. And you're looking and going, let me actually run that through my budget. Ooh, if I actually bought a house that big, I would have to pay off monthly mortgage of such an amount that I wouldn't be able to spend on like anything else. You know, so you get a big house and you can't afford the furniture. Yeah. Good question. What happens if you have debt and you die? All right? All right? So I'm going to answer the question. Does the debt go away? Actually does. Now, here's the thing. If you had assets like a house, and you're like, oh, I wanted that to go to my kids, but you had debt, the house is going to pay off the debt before anything goes to the kids. Does that make sense? It's a good question. The debt doesn't. Unless the debt is going to be is going to reduce how much the kids get. Does that make sense? If you owe a bunch of money and you want to pass money on to your kids, that's not going to happen. But if you have nothing to give to your kids and you owe a whole bunch to the bank and you die, too bad for the bank. The kids weren't going to get anything anyway. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So if that's the case, then you think you could stage your fake death?
Oh my gosh, that's insurance fraud. No, you can't do that.
No, but stage your death and then steal someone's identity and restart?
No, you're talking about so many violations. Just talking about that hearing, that's criminal behavior on my ears. Stop it before we have to turn you in. Yeah, you're being too clever. It's not going to work. Okay? All right, you ready for the next one? Okay, all right. Coining money. All right, so put this down. Coining money, basically translated is because coin. Well, what about paper money? Yeah, it's the same thing. The United States government can make money. Yeah, we could do that. I mean, once upon a time, write this down. The states actually had all their different currencies, which is pretty confusing when you got 13 different currencies and so forth. It's let's just keep it simple. The United States currency. The United States government makes the United States currency. Is that cool? That's what they do. Very good. That's really easy. Could be coins, could be bills, could be whatever. Right? and it's really good for the transaction of all various different things. Not much to say about that, really, except, one of the curious things is you have different denominations. When I was your age, all of the bills had profiles that were about the size of Washington's profile. Look at this, in the $1 bill right now. They've changed the design over the years to make the face bigger, and that's a stylistic thing, but also they've incorporated other features in there, and you'll see it later on. I've got a bullet point. You can look a little bit further down there. Do you see the one that says counterfeiting, punishing counterfeiters? We've tried to make our currency harder to counterfeit. So you get like watermarks, you get various different kinds of things, so that somebody can't just go up to a copying machine and put down the thing and go, oh, I just made some money. Okay? Can't do that. One of the things we have done in our country's history is we've put important people. Is George Washington important?
No.
Sure. Yeah. Abraham Lincoln? I'd say they definitely rate. Andrew Jackson's the one that has had, you're shaking your head. Whoa. Do you remember that? Trail of Tears. Yeah. Mr. Hanson ruined Andrew Jackson for me because he said he was the president in favor of moving those Native American people from the southeast part of the United States on a death march to Oklahoma. Yeah. He's probably going to get removed. Okay? He's probably, in fact, they were in the process of doing that, transitioning over to doing that, because they were like, we need to have like somebody of color or like maybe a female or something, right? So like maybe Harriet Tubman. I think that's actually going to go in within the next couple of so forth years. It was delayed during the 4-year presidency of President Trump because he's like, I like Jackson. I mean, Jackson's a tough son of a gun, and Trump actually kind of emulates Jackson. I think that was one of his favorite presidents. Seriously, I mean, because Jackson, if you remember that, remember the South, in the South, they were like, I think we're not going to follow federal law. And Jackson's like, yeah, I'll just go down there and hang every son of a gun that tries to do, oh, okay. Wow, you're treating us like you treated the Native Americans. Anyway, so I think Jackson is not long for the $20 bill. And here's the irony. Number 10, the $10 bill, there were folks that were like, oh, who knows Hamilton? He's not a president. We should just change him out. The musical saved him, honestly. Lin-Manuel Miranda, right? You got that? I think his musical rehabilitated, or at least got some focus on, the contributions of Alexander Hamilton, who was the first Secretary of the Treasury of the United States, and very important in the adoption of the Constitution, and yada, yada, yada. So I think he'll stay for a while. And of course, Grant's an interesting one. It's like Grant, he helped us win the Civil War, had a terrible presidency afterwards. Benjamin Franklin, he's cool. We don't really print any more denominations above that now. Used to, but we haven't done for a long time. Okay, questions, comments? Got that? All right. Harriet Tubman, I think that's a cool choice. Because she was called like Moses. She helped African American slaves get out of the South. I remember watching the movie about her. I was like, whoa, this is intense. And most of it was true.
Why would they choose her? She didn't have anything to do with the government, though.
No, but she's an important American that contributed. I mean, would slaves have had an opportunity to contribute officially in the government? No. Would women have had an opportunity to contribute officially in the government at that time? No, because they weren't even allowed to vote. So when you're looking, if you're looking for somebody to represent various different aspects of various different people in this country, Harriet Tubman's name comes up. Sometimes Susan B. Anthony, she was the first female. I think we put her on the dollar coin. She was an advocate for women's suffrage. Sacagawea, sometimes you hear. And she was actually on the dollar coin as well. She helped Lewis and Clark not get lost on the way to the Pacific Ocean. Thank you, Sacagawea. Oh, and she was carrying a baby along the way. I mean, excuse me.
It was on her back.
Right. Yeah, it must have been a lot lighter when it's on your back as opposed to, actually it probably would be a little bit, it would feel a little bit lighter, but in any event, there we go. Questions, comments about that topic? All right, good. Let's go on to the next one. Oh, this is fun. The United States Congress, as in the United States government, sets a standard weights and measurement system for the country. Woohoo! States do not, because we don't want state, because if every state had a different weight and measurement system, that would be crazy. Now we're going to nationalize it. We want to have uniformity across our 50 states and 6 territories and the District of Columbia, because confusion is not good. We need to have a standard weights and measure system. And so that's what we have. We've got inches and feet and pounds and ounces and gallons and miles. It's great. It's America. That's our system. Would be any better than what we have? Yeah, probably would. Look at this one. Who still doesn't use a metric system? Woohoo! I always got a response from this, like from when I had exchange students, when we were still like having kids come. Do you remember exchange students?
Oh, yeah.
We had a little bit last year, didn't we? I think. Anyway, yeah, and they come over and they're like, I have no idea. I mean, if you're trying to cook or anything. The first one that went with the metric system was France. Thanks, Napoleon. And it spread throughout Europe and all the European-dominated areas. And honestly, I think even today, this is outdated. I think Myanmar, a.k.a. Burma, and Liberia, I think they've also gone to the metric system. But why don't we? Because we're America. The metric system is true to the devil. My car gets 40 rods to the hogshead, and that's the way I likes it. We're stubborn. We're stubborn. If you're in certain things like, track, you have a sense of like what a meter is, right? A liter, you know what a liter is? Do you have How about, this is the one throws me off a little bit, is the measuring temperature. So if you hear like somebody from Britain go, oh, it's 30 today, and you're like, feels warmer than that. What is 30 centigrade?
About 90-something.
Is it 90? 60? Oh, that's a big disparity. Well, there you go, obviously. Now, you can look it up. Yeah, I mean, you're like, thanks, I'll just like do my little converter. 30 is warm. Yeah, it's warm. Are you looking it up right now? 86, yeah, okay. Because I remember because I watched the Great British Baking Show and so forth, and it's always way too hot in the tent toward the end of the season. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's like 35. Everything's the chocolate's melting. I can't make my ice creams. Right? You can watch it. It's really cute. It's a nice show. It is a fun show. But yeah, they're always talking about things in the centigrade. Whatever. Here's the deal. Here's the takeaway. The United States Congress has got it. If you don't like it, talk to Congress. Have they seriously considered changing it away from what we're using now? No. I think when I was your age, it was like, well, we should do that. Let's do it in the future. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to, at some point, we'll get it done. All right, counterfeiting. Here we go. How to spot a counterfeit bill and so forth. You got a watermark, you got color shifting ink, you got various different magnetic security threads and things like that because, trust me, write this down. Countries who don't like us, they want to mess with us. And they want to print off massive amounts of counterfeit U.S. currency because that messes with our economy and it makes them a lot of money because they're just making fake money. Have you ever bought something, exchanged a bill? Obviously not within the last year because people are like, I don't want to touch your bills. There's all kind of diseases and stuff on it. But I mean, but before that, if you have, it's like, are they really like, oh, wow, I'm going to check this out. If you're in a different part of the world, you can use a lot of American currency in different parts of the world. But in other parts of the world, there's a lot more phony money going around. Okay? And in fact, if you want to attack another country during war, and you don't want to blow them all up to bits and pieces, fly over the country and drop vast amounts of counterfeit currency. Of their currency, wreck their economy. I mean, it's interesting. Anyway, questions, comments about counterfeiting. The United States government does measures to follow up that. The agency responsible for going after counterfeiters, it's in the Treasury Department, and they also have a weird responsibility of also providing security for the president and his family. Which agency is that? Secret Service. Yeah. So if you're a Secret Service agent, you could be involved in going after counterfeiters, but you could also be involved in looking after Biden's dog or something. I don't know. Who knows? Okay? All right, counterfeiters. No, that's cool. Apparently there's a cat there too now. All right, now we have post office. This was a much more important thing in the early days of our country. In fact, it was a much bigger percentage of what our United States government did. The very first guy in charge of the postal system in our country was none other than Benjamin Franklin. I mean, we got a top dog in charge of the postal system. A postal system works by having going on regularly within a country the distribution of packages and letters and so forth. Very, very important. The postal system also makes contracts with other countries so that you can mail stuff to other countries and vice versa. But, write this down, it's not as important now because of several developments. You're like, really? Are you going to tell me what those developments might mean? Like the internet and phones and texting? If you want to get a message, do you have to use the postal system to get that message to someone? I mean, I used to go out to the postal box to get letters. People wrote letters. Have any of you ever written a letter in your life? Raise your hand if you've written more than 10 letters in your life. Oh, that's cool. Right, there you go. Really, to who? Like friends, family? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and your grandma writes back. Yeah, because, I mean, that's the way she does. You're like, Grandma, send me a text. Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's like, did Mr. Hanson, did he ever use the postal system? Yeah. These are the ones that came back from the Soviet Union, from my Estonian friends. Right? But nowadays, the communication that I have with them is, through text and, things like that. So that's taken away. Write this down. It's really taken away a lot of the business that the postal system does because people aren't relying on that as much for letters. A lot of bills aren't being sent through the postal system anymore. They're like automatically coming right out of people's bank accounts. Oh, and here's the other part. Packages. There's competition. You can use UPS, you can use FedEx and so forth. There's competition to the postal system. There's a lot of people who are doing that. Here's the problem with the postal system. It's not really paying for itself as much as it used to do in the past. In the past, it would pay for itself because they would charge you for stamps, what it took to realistically, the cost of getting whatever package it was or letter to where it was going, right? But now it's being subsidized by the taxpayers. So some people are like, well, shut down the postal system. What the heck? Shut it down or reduce its services. It's a tough one. If we were to do that, probably some people in Idaho wouldn't like it as much. Guess which? In the big cities of Idaho or the outlying small communities? Who wouldn't like it as much if the postal system was reduced or shut down? Small communities. Because when you look at the actual delivery of packages, particularly stuff, the texting is still going to be okay as long as they've got connectivity. But does it cost more to send something all the way up to Stanley, Idaho than it does to just deliver something across town to Meridian or Eagle? Yeah. And so they would have to pay the actual cost. Today, does it cost, if you were to send a card to someone in town, is it going to cost the same or more than to send that same card to somebody in Hawaii? If you use the postal system, it's the same. Yes. Yes. You do not have to pay international airfare. Is that subsidized going all the way to Hawaii? Sure, yeah, the taxpayers are subsidizing that. Okay? So, that's kind of how that goes. The postal system. Okay? So, I don't know. Anybody guys got any opinions about whether or not what we should do with that? Keep it? Yeah, I think we'll probably will keep it. I think members of Congress from Idaho and some of the other rural states are going to be try to keep it going as much as possible, but perhaps also try and reduce some of the costs. Okay? All right, now let's get to this one. This is actually very, very important. This one is under the bullet point, promoting science and the arts. This is one of the things in the Constitution, promoting science and the arts. Basically how this works is, in our Constitution, It's telling the federal government, Congress, that they may create laws and establish things that will help people who want to make scientific inventions. Got that? That would be a patent. If you make an invention, you want to make sure you get a federal patent. If you do some creative thing like a play or music or write a book, you would get a copyright. You want to protect the value of your creative work. From what? Yeah, exactly, from thieves. Because somebody might take your invention and try to make money off of it. And you can go, you can't do that. And they're like, I just did. What are you going to do? I'm like, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue you in federal court. Write that down. This is going to take place in federal court. And you will bring in all of the diagrams and documents that you need to show, you lose, pal. I own this. I have the patent. It's mine. All that money you made off of my creative invention, you can go ahead and hand it over to me right now, loser. I mean, honestly, if somebody comes up with a patent like that's really, really good for, like, I don't know, some automotive thing, sometimes the automotive industry will buy that patent. They're like, oh, man, I don't want to compete with that. So they buy the patent from the guy. They never make it necessarily, but they buy it. You got that? If what? Oh, if a big corporation buys your patent from you, if they own the patent, they can do whatever they want with it. They can. Correct. Correct. Then you have to decide whether or not you're going to sell it to them. Yeah. You got to think about that. Here's the hiccup. Ready? And this is a huge hiccup with patents and copyrights, by the way. Are other countries going to honor our patents and copyrights? Most countries, if they want to have a good relationship with the United States, we honor the patents in their country, they honor the patents in our country. Can anyone guess which country is like, we'll do it sometimes and a lot of times we don't? Yeah, write it down, China. Seriously. I saw it when I went over there with students and so forth. China will be like, yeah, you know what? No. Which is why a lot of people have some difficulties and so forth. But it's like, if it were a little teeny tiny country and they tried to get away with that nonsense, what would big countries do? Just like, shut them down. We're not going to trade with you. Really? Are you serious? Do you think the United States would punish China by not trading with it anymore because China is violating copyrights and patents held by U.S. citizens? I don't think so. I don't think we got the gumption to do that. But it happens. Perfect example. China was wanting to develop this really high-tech magnetic levitation train system. And so they made a contract with Siemens, which is a very big German company. And so the contract was this. Siemens was going to build the magnetic levitation train system from Shanghai out to their new airport. And so they're going to make a lot of money off of that. And the Chinese are like, this is great. And Siemens, if you do this, then we'll let you expand and you'll be the one putting in the whole magnetic levitation train system throughout our country. This is a great opportunity. You should do it. And they're like, oh yeah, let's do this. Jawohl, this is a German company. Jawohl, this is good. We'll do this. What's this thing here we have to sign at the bottom? I'm like, oh, well, you just have to hand over the blueprints. Well, I don't think you want to hand over if you want the job, you got to hand over the blueprint. So Siemens is like, okay, well, guess what happened? They built it. It worked great. And then the Chinese cut Siemens out of the building of the magnetic levitation train system throughout the rest of China. And what did the Chinese, who do they use to do that? Themselves. Using what technology? Yeah, the German technology that they took from them. And the Germans, let me see, did they file patent lawsuits in the Chinese court system? Don't even bother. Isn't it, though? Isn't it? Copyrights. That's the creative stuff, okay? You can put this down. The United States, a big part of our economy is our entertainment, creative industries. Oh my gosh, Hollywood, are you kidding me? When they make movies, They can make a lot of money on sales and showing the films and so forth to other parts of the world. China used to be worse about this. They're a little bit better, but it's still an issue. You go to China, and they got all kinds of bootleg, knockoff things all over the place. All kinds of copyright violations. And if you're like Disney and you're like, wow, can we like sue them? And I mean, they used to have the Chinese People's Liberation Army actually in charge of making bootleg copies of music and videos and so forth. And they finally were persuaded, oh, that's really seedy to have the government officially involved in violating other countries' copyrights. But if somebody tries to take your creative work and you've got a copyright on it, and if it happens in this country, you sue them. You get the value. By the way, here's a neat little trick. The poor man's copyright. Because sometimes it's expensive to go through, and trust me, with a patent and invention, get the patent attorney, pay the cost, it's worth it. But I mean, if somebody's just writing a book, like they take a year off or something and they write a book, and they want it copyrighted, they don't want other people to make the money, what can you do to show that it's your creative invention, your creative thing, your book, at a particular time and period? You put your name on it, but how do you get that date stamp? How do you get a date stamp that is an official record by the United States government that was yours at the time that date stamp was put on it? And so if somebody else tries to like publish that later on, you can go, hey, pal, look at that date. I did it by that time, and I'm proving that you copied it, you filthy thief. Mail it to yourself in a sealed envelope. What's on the outside of the sealed envelope? Date stamp from the United States government. They call that the poor man's copyright. Does that make sense? Okay. So, one of the very important things the United States government does, and that has helped our country our economy grow and grow and grow. Because we got some amazing inventors and creative people in this country, and the laws that are set up by Congress help to protect the value of those inventions. Does that make sense? I like it. And most countries around the world will honor ours. Probably the biggest hiccup is China. Okay, next one. Courts. Creation of lower federal courts. We'll see when we get into our judicial component, unit, that there is only one court created by the Constitution. You can write this down. The Supreme Court. It's the only one created by the Constitution. But the Constitution envisions that there will be other lower courts, as in courts of appeals, district courts. And they're going to handle all those lawsuits, those bankruptcy cases, those patent cases, those copyright cases, those federal criminal cases. They're going to handle all those various different cases. Well, then where are those courts going to come from? Congress will create them as they are needed. So write that down. Congress will create new court positions. If we need more bankruptcy court judges, Congress will create those new bankruptcy court positions. And by the way, guess who's going to fill those? Actually, it's very important. Guess who gets to fill the bankruptcy court positions, the new federal district court position, the new U.S. Court of Appeals positions? President, yeah. You know how many positions President Trump filled during his 4-year term? A lot. And some of them were vacancies because somebody had died or retired, and some of them were brand new positions that were created in order to handle all the cases that were going through the courts. Does that make sense? We'll come back to this because this is a very important thing. I mean, here's one for you. Could Congress create new U.S. Supreme Court positions? Yeah. There's 9 of them right now. And over the last more than 100 years, every time someone dies or retires, somebody is appointed to replace them. But we've never created, over the last 100 years, new positions. But could Congress create new Supreme Court positions? Mm-hmm. Would President Biden like to do that? Sure, maybe. I mean, if he gets to appoint 4 new ones, that's pretty cool. Is it likely to happen? I don't think so. I don't think that's likely to happen. Okay? We'll come back to the courts because we're going to be talking more about the courts later on. Pirates. Arr, yes, we're going to go after pirates. You're like, are we talking about like pirates of like, taking, computer piracy and that sort of thing? Not really. They're actually talking about the old-fashioned pirate stuff. What? Seriously, that was it is still an issue. Yeah, seriously, it's still an issue. Not so much in the Caribbean as it was back in the time that our country was created, where you got these guys going around and going after ships. And that's not good for business. Raise your hand if you can tell me, what part of the United States government was created in order to deal with piracy? Yeah? What part of the military? Maybe you're going to deal a lot with it. If it's really close to the coast, what part of the military is going to deal with that?
Air Force.
Nope. Well, back then, I mean, the Air Force will assist nowadays. Coast Guard, yeah, Coast Guard. So we deal with pirates, right? Bad guys in the seas. And literally, probably the most well-known one, I think it was called Captain Phillips. It was a Tom Hanks movie, and it was about some pirates coming off of Somalia. They're like, hey, we're going to hold this captain and the ship ransom until we get some more money. The United States Navy came in and sniped and took out those pirates. They're like, oh, don't mess with the United States because we have reach to deal with pirates in all parts of the world. Some other countries were just paying off those pirates. Okay? And if you ever deal with pirates, don't go like parlay. You know, that's not going to work. All right? Next one. Declaration of war. Congress has the power to declare war. Got that? Congress has the power to declare war. Sometimes Congress declares war. Here is war being declared. Let's see if we can read the headline and figure out what war the United States was declaring war after that. Yeah? Yeah? Well, then don't raise your hand. Yes, Jana? Yeah, Pearl Harbor is where it occurred. So what was the name of the war? World War II. Yeah, the United States declared war on Japan. And then we also fought Germany because why? What did Germany do to us? They were stupid to declare war on us. Put it down. Congress declares war. Do you need the president involved in that? Not officially. President Roosevelt asked Congress to declare war, and Congress was like, yeah, we're going to do that. But here, put this down. This is an interesting little twist. That was the last time Congress declared war, during World War II. And you're like, that doesn't make sense. Mr. Hansen, we've had the Korean War, and the Vietnam War, and the war in Afghanistan, and we've been in Iraq, and there's been other fighting. Put this down. It's not always an official declaration of war, but Congress often gives the president authority to wage war against enemies in particular areas and so forth. It's not an official declaration of war, but it's like that. Got it? Now, there's a little bit of a twist. I'm going to go ahead and introduce this to you. You think there's anything in the Constitution that says the president can just like use the military against enemies just because the president is the president? Yep, it's called the commander-in-chief role. And there's a little bit of a disconnect. Can the president, commander-in-chief, like wage military conflict with enemies without the full permission of Congress? Maybe, sort of, kind of. It's a little squishy. What usually helps is if Congress and the president agree that some enemy is enemy. And the president goes in and uses the military, and Congress like gives them the funds and so forth, and it all comes together just great. Because if they disagree, that could be problems. Could be big problems. Okay? And you get a bit of a fight between that. Like, for example, President Ford, he was the president of the United States. North Vietnam attacked South Vietnam in violation of a treaty. The treaty was like, North Vietnam, the United States left South Vietnam with all our troops because you promised never to attack, and now you attacked. President Ford's like, now we're going to send back the troops. At that time in history, the United States Congress was like, we're tired of fighting and sending soldiers into Vietnam. Sorry, not going to do it. The president couldn't do anything about it. Okay? That's where we are. We're going to pick it up next time with Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, National Guard. Oh, wait, there's one more. Space Force. Dun, 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 dun. Which is the Space Force insignia? The left one? Are you sure? It looks like the one on the right. That's Starfleet Command, Captain Luc Picard, Jean-Luc Picard. Or Captain Kirk, James T. Kirk. What? What about POWs? Well, I don't think I had a POW flag in there. I got Navy, I got generally the Department of Defense. What? NASA's a different one. That's a different part of the government. You guys can wipe down. We're done.
Isn't the Space Force a direct violation of the Nuclear Convention?
I haven't heard the arguments on that one way or another. I don't know. That could be an interesting thing.
If it's so, then President Trump or ex-President Trump.
Well, and it was, I don't know.
It's just so weird to think, have it stick in that Biden's not our president.
Biden is our president.
No, I said it's like,
Yeah.
it's like have it sinking in.
Yes, that we have a new president. Well, I'll get used to it over the next 4 years.
I watched the first press conference that they had with the Biden White House,
Uh-huh.
and everyone was asking questions about like the next 4 years, and the person that was saying president was like, it's been like 6 hours.
Yeah. Come on, you guys. Come on. As soon as you guys are done, you guys can go. I mean, you have to go. You have to go to 8th period. Go. Wake up, Foot. Hello. Oh, I got to turn that off.